So today we went over job characteristics theory and we described the five main job characteristics, which are skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. So we talked about these five job characteristics, and job characteristics theory says it's these five characteristics of jobs that lead to job outcomes like productivity, job satisfaction, absenteeism, turnover. Those things are all connected to these characteristics of the job. So in general, people like when they have a variety of tasks that they have to do throughout the day. They like high task identity. They like understanding, they like being able to complete a whole piece of work. They want task significance. They want to find meaning in their work. They like autonomy to decide how, what to do and how to do it. And they like feedback. They like to hear about how they're doing. And so when all of those things are high, you have very happy, productive workers. And when those things are low, then that starts to impact happiness and productivity. The impact of these job characteristics changes depending on the person. So when we look at something like autonomy, especially, there are some people who they just want to do things their own way and like, dude, get out of the way and let me do my work. There are other people that like a lot of structure, that like to be told, exactly what to do and exactly what the expectations are. So there is variety in the extent to which people desire these different characteristics. But in general, when these job characteristics are high, they lead to happy, productive workers. You are probably not lazy. Let me explain what I mean by that. I have often thought of myself as lazy because there are aspects of my work that I struggle to get myself to do. One of those things is writing research papers. And I was reading a book on how to write more productively. And one of the things the author says is that a lot of my colleagues have this self-image of themselves as lazy because they dislike writing. And I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely me. And he's like, these same colleagues, wake up at 7 a.m. and run 6 miles in a snowstorm to stay on their exercise routine. That is not a lazy thing to do. And I'm like, oh, I do that. I run in the snow. Like, that isn't lazy. And what the book goes on to say, and what job characteristics theory says, is that people are neither inherently lazy or productive. It's really about the task that you give them. And if we have a task that is high in meaningfulness, high in feedback, high in task identity, we get absorbed in those tasks. We like working on those tasks. When tasks lack those things, when jobs lack meaningfulness, when they lack identity, when they lack feedback and autonomy, we tend to not like that. And you'll hear me say a lot in my courses that people like to work. They don't like to work 60 hours a week in a cubicle. And if you're struggling with productivity, maybe when it comes to schoolwork or work, assess it on those five characteristics of job characteristics, and I bet you it's missing a really important piece. And if you can find a way to incorporate that piece into the job, if you can make the job more meaningful, if you can seek out feedback, if you can ask your supervisor for more autonomy, then the work itself becomes more motivating. It's not about you being lazy or not, it's about the work being motivating or not. All right, so here's our big constellation of today. We talked about job structure, and job structure is really important because teams are built on jobs, and teams are important because teams are the building blocks of organizational structure, and organizational structure is important because it helps us accomplish our competitive strategy. Strategy positions us within the five forces of an industry to maximize ROI. That is the context of all of this. And when I was in grad school, and I got a PhD in psychology, not management, and when I was in grad school, we learned about job characteristics theory separate from this context. We just learned about it without context. And as a psychologist, I was like, man, why don't we structure every single job like that? Why isn't every job high in autonomy, high in meaning, high in task identity? And the reason, when you look at this figure, is obvious, right? That we are not designing jobs to make our employees happy. We're designing jobs ultimately to accomplish our strategy and maximize ROI. So increasing skill variety might really improve employee job satisfaction, employee performance even, but it's going to undercut our strategy. It's going to undercut our bottom line. And so it's really tempting to say, hey, let's just make every job so much fun. But you can only do that if it's in alignment with the overall strategy of the organization.